Hey everybody, nothing fancy. I just wanted some folks to keep me company while I'm down here sorting through boxes and bins and everything in the Alchemy Nook. Some of you know I had embarked on this fairly involved journey for creating or recreating specifically an ancient incense known as kapet or kifi. And that started in 2019. And, since we were kind of locked in for 2020, it became like a full thing to the point where it sort of outgrew the kitchen. And so we have been redoing the ritual chamber and library down here. And this is a little nook where when we have people over uh, in the pre-COVID times, folks would sleep in the little nook back there. So we've got this, little spot that we put in some more bookshelves and a kind of like credenza that is currently stuffed to the gills with jars full of stuff. And I am slowly working my way through this stuff over here, which includes a lot of stuff. So I've been doing this paranormal occult pagan thing for a really long time. So since the early 90s, so 1990, 1991, and consequently I have tons and tons of stuff collected from that. Magazines, underground, independent publications that used to be called zines, flyers, just all sorts of stuff. And I'm kind of a hoarder when it comes to that stuff. I mean, I think of myself more as an archivist. But if there's something that was printed from 1991 on down and it kind of fell in that wheelhouse, chances are, if I had it, it's down here. Mostly corralled in this section, but there's some other places where it's spilled over. So hello to everybody. Hi, Christy and Chris and Heather, Leah, Melissa, Tracy. I won't be able to keep up on all of the posts, and I'm but there's master of the comments, ability to like read through everything and like out the cool stuff and like, get me to actually like answer engaged questions. Not like all the comments aren't engaging, but me say, hey, hi Missouri, and hey, hi Florida. Like I want to say hey, hi to everybody, but anyway, that's probably coming off all kinds of wrong. Let's see, land of Hanford nuclear plant. Oh my goodness. We're, what is it, Best Davis out here, the one that nearly melted down, because that's not alarming. But this is, I hope the reception is good. We're in the basement. I still have not worked out the lighting in the library to actually get people in there, and we have insulated the library to a degree that we're going to need another router down here if I'm going to ever really like realistically live stream down there. So much wonderful support from everybody. And don't worry, I want to make sure that I am not online for too long, because Kindred Spirits premieres tonight at 9 Eastern, 10 Central, I think, or is it 10? Well, anyway, later tonight it's Kindred Spirits, and I know that Greg and Dana get up to some interesting stuff on this episode, and there's a little bit more magic and experiment that's going on, so I want to make sure people get a chance to catch that. Marple, England. So many people. Massachusetts, Nashville, uh, Joyce? Oh, yeah, Joyce. Got it. Took me a second. I'm silly. Let me see some of the fun things are down here. Yesterday it was all of the paranormal stuff. So like Taps Paramag from I think 2006. This one is Volume 1, number 12. Everybody looks so young. They're like little babies. Seriously. Babies! What's the most prized item in my cult collection? Wow. I'm That's a hard question to answer because I don't do favorites very well, and also it kind of depends on like the thing and like what it's used for. Um, Certainly one that I cherish is there is this monkey skull that a friend brought back from a trip he took to the Philippines, and a Filipino shaman had put a spirit in it, and it works as a spirit guardian. And I will admit, when my friend came back with this thing, I was intensely skeptical. I figured that it was just something that was being put together for tourists, and there wasn't going to be anything other than here's a little monkey skull in a wicker basket that you hang somewhere. But it's pretty reliably active, and I I also have a thing against binding spirits into objects or items, certainly against their will. So I was like, I feel real silly talking to a monkey skull or whatever's in the monkey skull, but if you want to be out of the monkey skull, like, you have to stay. But whatever it was seems like it's very happy there. I've asked if it wants to be called anything special, and it's happy just being called monkey or monkey skull. I'm pretty sure that it didn't start off as a monkey, but it or he or she. Gender's really wibbly on this thing. The only thing I can say is it doesn't feel human, but it currently hangs upstairs where it has a view of my front door, and it will slowly track people who come over that it's not sure about. And we'll spend most of the day staring like directly at the door into my office, which is kind of off catty corner from the front door. And if somebody's at the front door, it turns and twists. And I've done a lot of experimenting with it to like, okay, well, is it just catching the breezes? Like, what's going on with it? And no, it responds intelligently. So it's a very unique thing. Like, you don't get something like this every day. Uh, it seems nice. It seems to like being part of my house. So yeah, Monkey is one of the parts of the collection that I really like. Let's see. Troll alert, David Lee Garrett. Oh, I I've missed the troll. uh oh well. So so the thing about my fiction is it's written about. Okay, actually, you know what? I'm gonna turn what might be a troll situation into something that is interesting and educational. Uh, I believe when people are creating, especially fiction, we're dipping into a vast well of mythic imagination. The stories that we ourselves tell, and all of the stories that have been told, but more than that, like hopes, dreams, memories, all the stuff that like we're connected with along on the edges. And it's possible for us to create stuff that draws upon other people's dreams, realities, experiences without consciously doing so. Uh, there's Stephen King actually makes note of it in, I think it might be The Dead Zone and it might be The Stand. I've read so many King novels, it's kind of ridiculous. But uh, I think the thing that he was citing was when Isaac Newton was developing calculus, there was another mathematician and polymath who was developing basically the same stuff at the same time. And there was a big hullabaloo that one was stealing from the other, and that somehow this was a nefarious act of intellectual theft. But what they were able to prove was they were literally coming up with the same ideas and the same conclusions at the same time, independent of one another, which to me is one of those instances that kind of reaffirms that idea that we are connected in ways that we hardly understand. And when one person has a thought, it may be original to them, but it's not just their thought, it's this pebble that gets dropped into the vast pond that we all inhabit, and those ripples are picked up by other people. So when you read something, especially fiction, and it strikes true, and there's no way that the person who wrote it could have had access to you, to your life, to your stuff, uh, consider the fact that we're all connected and that the truth will come out one way or the other. And dreams and stories are the most effective way for that to happen. Like stuff just comes out. Also, don't underestimate the fact that I might be telling my own story there too. I don't know about the aliens probing us, although I turned up a whole bunch of magazines that were like the 50th anniversary of Roswell down here. I used to work at a bookstore, an independent bookstore, and I was the manager of the magazine department. And so I had first pick of all the cool shit that came through. Let's see what else is down here. Tarot readings, silly cartoons that I drew in high school that I'm not sharing with anybody. This is the, what year is this? Oh, 2000, yeah. 2000 edition of the Vampire Codex. So the first kind of independent version of it that came out beyond parts of it that I was publishing myself. The first one was written in '94. But the thing with books is if you've seen it published by a publisher, chances are the person who wrote it finished the final draft a year before that book hit the market. And that final draft is probably something that happens after 3 to 5 and sometimes even 10 years of working and refining and pitching and trying to like find an agent and trying to find a, like, it's this long, slow process. So all the books that you see out there in the world right now, like, it's very rare for them to be something that was like written just last year. If an author already has an agent or already has a publisher, it's likelier because that kind of greases the wheels. But especially first-time people or not so well-known people, their books have been on the shelves for years before they've gotten them out there. Oh, here's a fun thing. I have no fucking idea where I got this. I think it was a convention, but it's a script. So I've got one of the reading copies of Interview with a Vampire from '93. Truly do not know how this ended up in my collection. Like, it's been sitting down here and I'm just like, I don't even know what to do with it. I mean, I didn't dislike the movie, but it's no Lost Boys. Speaking of which, first thing I ever purchased at a convention, still enshrined down here. If you don't know who it is, well, I can't help you. Maggots, Michael, you're eating maggots. How do they taste? Proof that I am a geek and a freak, and I fly those flags proudly. What else? I realize that me doing this as a live stream means that I'm not actually going to get anything functionally done down here. Let's see. More highs from people. Oh, goodness gracious. All right, bye. Oh, look, the block button. I have found it. Apparently he's Elohim, which just shows that he doesn't really know what Elohim means, because that means the gods and the goddesses. It's plural. It's the pantheon of polytheistic deities that existed prior to Jewish monotheism. The name lingers in the Bible and is used interchangeably with Yahweh. It's translated, the difference between God and the Lord God. If you open up your Bible and you see sometimes God is translated as God and sometimes it's the Lord God, that's the difference between Elohim and Yahweh. It's a real fun rabbit hole to go down. And apparently Mr. Garrett over there didn't go down it far enough in order to inflate his silly ego. Oh, so the alchemy section here is just jars and jars and jars of herbs. Everything's getting stored in glass because I don't particularly like or trust plastic. I don't like the way it breaks down with stuff. Uh, do I have advice for someone with gifts who's trying to develop them? I mean, honestly, the first piece of advice I have for everybody is spend some time getting to know the landscape here. Like, how how does your head work? Not even with paranormal stuff, not even with psychic stuff, but what senses do you tend to focus on? Are you really visual? Are you tactile? Are you somebody who focuses more on emotion? Um, when you remember things, like when things linger in memory, what do you tend to retain? What tends to like just fall right out of your head? What holds your attention? What loses your attention? If you know those things, if you understand like your triggers and your bridges into memory, and the senses that tend to be your dominant senses, the things that appeal to you most, you are better equipped to both recognize and analyze paranormal and psychic experiences when you have them, because they're going to happen in that language, in the symbols that are important to you, in the senses that are important to you, in the way that you process the natural world in addition to the supernatural world. I strongly recommend keeping journals or records of some sort. If you're not someone who's comfortable sitting down and writing, then do a vlog or a video journal, like do talk to text on your phone, anything that lets you keep a record that you can go back to, because that becomes a better guidebook than anything that you can buy for anybody else, because it gives you insight into you, which is something that no book, not mine, not anyone's, can give. We can tell you how to try to find that insight, but we can never tell you how you work. Only you can figure that out. It's the great and also the really hard part about it. Like there is no easy map, because every one of our experiences, each of us, that map is going to be different. Oh, the $1,000,000 question, when am I going to have my own show? I mean, it's a long story, but uh, I've had a lot of stuff pitched at me, and it will have to be the right thing that doesn't ask me to do things like fake or embellish, or overstate experiences. Like I'm really picky. Um, Somebody's asking about Amy Allen. I gotta be honest, I don't really watch a lot of the paranormal shows, and there's a reason for that. Uh, a lot of them are investigating various locations, and the way I function with the psychic things hinges on as little foreknowledge, and tainting about the location as possible. So if I were to watch any of the shows out there, I might end up watching an episode about something that I get called up to investigate later, and I'll never know for sure if that reading is me or is stuff that I learned from watching somebody else's episode. And certainly, I wouldn't expect other people to believe that I wasn't just pulling the information out of the episode. So I make a point of not watching any of it. Like I support my friends who are in the community, like Greg and Dana, and um, the Kindred Spirits folks, and of course Jack and Katrina and Ilfie Music. But and the Ghost Bros, because they are fucking hilarious and I adore them. But I don't feel like I'm in a position to make a comment about uh, how other people do their stuff. Uh, Mostly because I don't want to stick my toes in that. Uh, so yeah, I mean, to the broader question, there are spirits and things everywhere, and how does God allow that? The first part to consider with that question is it assumes that it's always a bad thing if a spirit is lingering, and I think that that's not necessarily true. I think, especially with human spirits, the human dead, Lingering after death for a little while, especially if you've gone through a lot of trauma, if there's a lot going on, if you're still very conflicted or confused about the life that you've led, still very attached to it. I think having a little bit of time to sort that out before moving on to the next stage is helpful rather than harmful. And so in that respect, I think assuming that it's a neat linear progression of you're born, you live, you die, you go to heaven, um, misses some of the complexities of actual spirit development. And I don't know, I don't think that we're in a good position while we're still wearing bodies to really be able to say what's the right way it's supposed to play out once you're not wearing a body. I like to let spirits and entities kind of do their own thing unless they happen to be causing trouble for people. And then 90% of the time, if they're causing trouble, it's because they don't really understand how to communicate. They're trying too hard and they don't fully get that what they're doing is problematic. Very rarely, like there is that 10% when it is malevolent, when it is bad, when things are actually like trying to attack people and being malicious about it. But most of the time, it's a misunderstanding. And in that respect, it's easy to resolve by simply sitting down and having a conversation, being clear, and you know, at best, it's just, oh, well, sorry, didn't realize that screaming at them, I just wanted their attention, and screaming seemed like a good way because like I tried whispering and they didn't hear that. Uh, and in the more extreme cases where it's just a misunderstanding, they don't quite understand their own strength for things that they're doing. So, they're trying to manifest, they're trying to communicate, but it seems like, they're just knocking things around and they're just, poking people or shaking them up when they're asleep. And from our perspective, that's scary as hell. But from their perspective, that's communication. So it's more complicated than black and white, I guess, is what I'm saying. I don't know if anybody else saw the cat sneak in, but here she is. Hello, Julie Ellen, new here. Hello, Gail and Dawn. Oh, yeah. I think I know exactly who you're talking about. When you know people who pass and they don't cross, do they come to you for help? Sometimes they come to you for help. Sometimes they come to me for help. If you're asking if I know, or if you're just generally saying like you in general, um, they will sometimes seek out people that they know. Sometimes they seek people out for help. Sometimes they just pop by to say hi. The death announcing dream is one of the most commonly recorded paranormal experience. And if you go back through the annals of like the 19th century documents from the Society for Psychical Research and the American Society for Psychical Research and the similar groups that grew up around that time, this idea of someone who passes on appearing in dreams or appearing to people that they know, friends, family, lovers, is such a common experience. And what makes it believably a psychic experience, a paranormal experience, is especially in the 1800s when this would happen. It's not like you had a cell phone, you didn't have instant confirmation that someone had died. So when you wake up and you see them standing by your bed and they're like trying to communicate, and you check the time, and later, like sometimes days, sometimes weeks later, you learn that that's when that right around the when that person passed on and they showed up to you. That indicates that there's something more going on than just the way that when we're mourning, when we've experienced a loss, if we're really familiar with a person in our space, our brains can kind of project the sense of them just out of the sheer expectation that they should be here. Like it's become a habit to hear them, to feel them, to turn and look and expect to see them. And sometimes that can result in our brains unconsciously projecting a brief glimpse of them, which is really just a memory. But it can easily be mistaken for a spiritual visitation. And I'm never going to poo poo on someone who still wants to take that as a spiritual visitation, because in the process of mourning, I think it's really important for us to feel connected to the person that we've lost. to feel that they're still here, to feel they're still around and near us. Um, but yeah, in the case of folks that we know personally who move on, or who die and who are still kind of hanging around for a little while, it's not uncommon for them to go on walkabout. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're earthbound or stuck. They're going through their process. When in the case of sudden death, unexpected death, accidental death, or suicides, there's a lot going on for that person, and they they may show up because you're part of their puzzle, and they need to solve that puzzle before they move on to the next stage. And some of that can be on you to respond and communicate, um, but most of the solution is on them. Like, they have to come to it in their own time. I find it, I think it's very presumptuous for us to assume that we both have the power and the capacity to just shove them off into their next stage of life, whether they're ready for it or not. Like, that's a lot of judgment that we're putting in our own hands for the idea of like making things move on. Um, I think a healthier way of approaching it is engaging, communicating, passing along how you genuinely feel, offering insight and guidance if you have it, but then ultimately letting the spirit themselves come to their own decision and follow their journey in their own time. Oh, let's see about that episode. If you were scared by that, which episode are we talking about, Chad? Okay, well, I don't know what Chad Kalick episode we're talking about, so. How old was I when I first started recognizing my gifts? So I had the great good fortune to be born into a family which wasn't weird. So a better answer is, how old was I when I realized that not everybody had these gifts? And that was sometime once I started going to school. So probably about first grade. Because I mean, kindergarten is just sort of like a blur of finger painting, and the odd dog is weird, and like, simple like learning to read and stuff like that. And you're just trying to like sort out how to be a person around other people. You're certainly not having like deep, meaningful conversations about whether or not everybody else in the room is like. But by first grade, uh, I'd started to realize that other kids didn't see all the same stuff that I did, and that we didn't have the same sorts of conversations, and home didn't seem to be the same. And over time, I got curious enough to go like, so is this like what is this? Like, how does this work for people who aren't us? Uh, my grandmother, her daughter, my mom's sisters all talked about experiences. And one of the things that I really appreciate about the family I grew up in was, in addition to being believers in psychic experience and experiencers themselves, everybody really pushed to study, to understand, to do research. So not to just take the experiences at face value, but to record them, and analyze them, and then learn about how all of that works. So that's also why I pursued the psychology stuff that I did in college, to get a better handle on how brains work, how sensation and perception are processed by these vast supercomputers between our skulls, and how does all of that fit in with the worldview that we are able to perceive more than what our five physical senses can tune into. It's been a fun journey. I'm sorry for everybody who's lost people. It's so hard. I mean, I don't know if anybody's, paid enough attention, but like around the holidays, I just kind of like go dark on social media, because every single person who raised me is dead. My mom's dead, my grandfather's dead, my grandma's dead, like every, and they've been dead for years. I lost my mom when she was 52. She had cancer for 13 years. My gram and her brother and her sister were people who raised me. And, like they're all gone. So I understand loss, and I understand complicated loss, because as much as I really appreciate certain aspects of the family I grew up with, there's certain things I don't appreciate from my grandmother and those folks. And it's a complicated, tangled family story. But no, I get it. It's hard. Uh, I think I think one of the things, especially if you have a complicated relationship with someone, more than being haunted by them, literally by their ghost, is being haunted by our memory of them, haunted by our experiences, haunted by the things that we didn't get to resolve, uh, that unfinished business. And I think that can haunt us much more completely than an actual literal spirit. Like it weighs on us. Oh, let's see. What all do I have here? Oh, oh, hey, look, newspaper articles with yours truly. Gotta file that stuff away. Uh, Hello to everyone. I think I should be live streaming on both Facebook and on YouTube. I don't get comments neatly from all of them because I'm using StreamYard. Like I said, usually Illyria is also helping with this, but Illyria is painting upstairs and I'm down here trying to file stuff. So it's just me. So if I miss a question, if it's not that I'm ignoring you, it's that like I actually at this point have to like get up about this close to see any of the text anyway, and I'm not like wrangling all of the questions. So just if you're in the chat, be nice, be kind, don't be a dick. I already blocked one person, but that's just because he was being real weird. And I'm not sure if he was being intentionally weird or if he was delusional, and it just hit a point where it didn't matter anymore because it was being disruptive. So just be nice. It's not hard. Let's see. Do I still have Sebastian the cat? What's in the jars? Oh, glad you asked. That's actually what this whole nook is about. These are all, well, these ones aren't labeled, so let me find. This is my little apothecary corner. So the jars are full of various powders and resins and roots and woods, mainly for incense making. I started making or crafting this incense that, so there's an incense that was used throughout the ancient Mediterranean world. It was called variously Kapet, Kifi, Kupar, and it's probably most popularly known as Kifi, which is the Hellenic Greek rendering of the Egyptian name. It was an Egyptian temple incense. It was used for thousands of years. It was burned in the evening as part of the temple ceremony, and it was used to open the mind to spirit communication and dreams, and to invite and feed the spirits and the gods to like come in. And it was made with a whole bunch of rare, hard to source, luxurious resins and woods, and other plants, and like frankincense and myrrh and gum mastic, juniper berries and aspalathos and sweet flag, to name a few, with a base of honey and raisins and wine. And in 2019, I started recreating the stuff off of an old recipe that survives on the walls of the laboratory building in the temple complex at Edfu in Egypt. And that particular recipe is a little over 2,000 years old. There are older recipes, but they don't have the measurements. That one has the measurements. So I converted it from the we're making a batch big enough to suit a temple to I'm making a batch I can make in my kitchen. And it's been this fun, magical, rewarding journey. Like I never really with the paranormal shows, you don't really see like the kind of kitchen witch side that I've got. It's about as close to domesticity as I think I get. But I have done a lot of work for many years with herbs and herbalism, holistic healing, and stuff like that. So this is both kind of alchemy and herbalism and creativity, and it's just fun to make this ancient, fascinating scent. Also, lots of research, which I love. Let's see. I'm seeing. Sorry, how's everybody? Oh no, Sarah. Okay, and I apologize for anybody who's lost a human relative if I sound like I'm more broken up about a pet. But, you know, pets, their lives are so short and they're so uncomplicated for us. Like it's so hard. I mean, it's a huge loss to lose a human. Um, but I don't know. For me, pets always hit a little bit harder. Uh, I guess I think because when they are our companion animals, uh, we're responsible for them. We're their caretakers, and they're kind of our caretakers too. And like that's a particular loss that our culture also doesn't give us a lot of breathing room to deal with. Like it's okay to mourn a relative, but you're always going to have some people who heartlessly tell you it's just a dog, get over it. It's just a cat, get over it. And I will never be one of those people. I am inclined to punch those people, impolite as that might be. So no, I understand, and it's my heart goes out to you. And I saw Chip Coffey lost Gracie today as well. So it's just been a lot of loss all around. Christy, I get that a lot about my voice. It's something about the pitch and the timbre. I do guided meditations and things, and I think that one of the reasons they're as popular and successful as they are is knowing how to like kind of regulate the vocalizations. I've got musical training as well, so that may play a role as also. Uh, oh goodness, what else do we have in these corners? Old things from shows that I played. Speaking of singing, uh, oh, here's a complete blast from the past. This is me at a Renaissance festival where I was selling some of my old incense and oils and doing tarot card readings back in 1994, I think. And the thing about the Ren Fair is like you had to dress up all Ren Fair like, so I did like this whole sort of like wildling look. Those were the days. I was still in college and barely knew my ass from a hole in the ground when it came to how to like deal with people. What is my favorite music? Um, well, I grew up on classical and on folk. My mom was a violinist and a vocalist, and she was going to college for that. She earned a chair on the Cleveland Orchestra, actually. Um, and honestly, I wasn't really so complicated family stuff. My mom was in my life until March of kindergarten, and then things happened, and so she was in Texas for most of the rest of my childhood. My grandmother took over, and so I was raised by my grandmother and her brother and her sister, and that was weird and complicated. And one of the things was they were kind of funny about some of the stuff I was allowed to do. So I wasn't allowed to listen to music. Like we didn't really have radio. I certainly wasn't allowed to listen to like rock and roll and stuff. So in high school, like, my only access to stuff was what they played over the loudspeakers at lunch, or when I finally, at 17, managed to finagle a car and I could listen to the radio in the car. What I found that I liked and definitely still like is I am an old school goth. Depeche Mode and Bauhaus and Sisters of Mercy, The Cure, and of course Bowie, who just transcends genre. So goth and classical, and I also have 3 years of opera training. So I enjoy performing a fair number of some of my favorite stuff to perform would be Brahms' Neue Liebeslieder waltzes, and which I just completely muffed the pronunciation for that, and I apologize to anybody who actually speaks German. It's been a while. The Neue Liebeslieder waltzes, and let's see, Vivaldi, pretty much all of Vivaldi. I adore Vivaldi. Uh, that might be my mom. I think that she was working on the Gloria when I was 2 or 3 for one of the orchestra things that she was involved in. But I mean, really, there's not a lot of music I don't like. Um, Screaming black metal, not so much. Like, there has to be some vocals that I can relate to, like vocals that like grab me. I like Ghost, and let's see, VNV Nation. I'm a fan of Nox Arcana, but that's sort of cheating because I sing with them. Oh, how many lives have I had? Called out am I? You know, a soul never tells their age, but yeah, if you get a sense of old soul from me, yes, there is definitely old soul. I've been around, and I won't lie. One of my passions for recreating this incense is I wanted to see if I could get it to smell right, and it started with scent is a huge memory trigger, and I work with a lot of people for past life recall and reincarnation stuff. I do a lot of past life regressions. I have been doing past life work for myself for years and years and years. That's a very long story. It's a whole thing of its own. But the idea behind recreating Keefe was, what if we could recapture the scent so authentically that people who felt that they had lifetimes in the ancient Mediterranean, where this was used widely, not merely in Egypt, but in Syria, in Greece, Rome, all over the place. What if we could use that as a memory trigger? What if we burned that incense while we went on a past life regression to sort of like steer toward a certain cluster of lifetimes? And yeah, so the Keefe project and all of the stuff that I've been doing with it is more than just herbalism and more than just I got a wild hair up my ass and research something. Like, it's about reclaiming certain aspects of the past and just, nostalgia. Who? Oh yes, Victoria. That Mongolian band. That stuff is fucking awesome. And like the throat singing, I mm, yes, their stuff is really really cool. One of the things that I love right now with the way the internet is there's so much choice and there's so many things that we can just like reach out and be exposed to that we might not have ever had access to. Um, so yeah, who is super cool. And the blend. Um, Quintal is another like older group that did a similar thing where they took like old traditional music and then they up updated it with some synthesizers and some beats. And so you've got old alt music from European a cappella kind of stuff, and then also like EBM, and it's just this cool blend. Okay, I'm looking at Linda asking, how can you tell the difference between a guardian angel or guide and something like a ghost or darker spirit touching and speaking to you in your sleep enough that it wakes you up? It didn't feel threatening to me, but I'm curious. Uh, Wadruna, that's another good one. So the first giveaway to me is it didn't feel threatening to you. Which point, if instinctively you don't feel threatened, it's probably not a threat. Now, some things can be sneaky and will try to like worm their way in. But again, as much as we see on the paranormal shows and the movies that that seems to be how things always work, those are the exception, not the rule. I'm going to say like a full like 90% of spirit interactions are benign, harmless, neutral, or even like actually intended to be helpful. And it's a very small minority of things where that's just something bad. But apply empirical data to it. Pay attention, keep a record. You know, the first time it happens, write down everything you remember and everything you felt. It doesn't have to be, full sentences. It doesn't have to be a great, American novel worth of writing. Just jot down notes like this happened. What time was? Can you remember any of your dreams? Get as much data as possible and make a record. Put the date on. If you can, put the time on. And then the next time it happens, also write down as much as you can. Don't go back and read. Just put down as much as you can without judging it or analyzing it. Just get as much of the experience and the emotion and the sensations on the page, and then step back and look at it and compare and ask yourself hard questions about it. But it's imperative, if you really want to understand your experiences, and this goes for experiences with spirits, this goes for your experiences, your psychic perceptions. Your first step is, of course, the experience itself. The second step is recording as much of what you experienced with as little interpretation or bias or skewing as quickly as you can. So get as much data down as possible. And then the third step is stepping back and looking over what you've recorded and asking yourself hard questions about it. And I will tell you that you will be more able to tell and determine at the end of the day if this is a good thing or a bad thing than anyone else, because you're the one having the experience, you're the one in the middle of it, you're the one for whom this is happening. So you will understand better. But those steps, the experience, the record, the analysis, follow those and keep up with it, because doing it for just one experience, like these are things that are probably going to happen multiple times. And it's helpful if they happen multiple times because it gives you a range of data. It gives you a lot of data points to like work on and try to figure out, okay, well, it seems harmless this day, and then it starts getting kind of funny. And it lets you make a much more informed decision about what's happening to you and whether or not you decide this needs to not happen. And I'm going to say also, as sort of like an addendum to that, even if it's harmless, even if you can tell that this is something that is not trying to hurt you, if it is disrupting you and your life, you should ask it to stop, or at least ask it to try to communicate in a different way. Because it's not helping anyone if it is upsetting you, if it is triggering panic attacks, if it's upsetting, your kids, your pets, and things that are harmless can sometimes be so insistent about communicating that they will cause upset. So always hold boundaries. If it's not comfortable, even if you're like, well, it seems like it's okay, it doesn't seem like it wants to hurt me, but I'm still not keen on it doing this, take a minute and say, hey, stop doing that thing. Here's why I don't like that thing. Here's what I would rather have you do. Can we work together? Are you willing to listen to what my boundaries are? Treat more spirits like you would, anybody else in your house. If somebody not doing the dishes and leaving shit all around the place just drives you up a tree, even actually trying to fuck with you, and they're not being malicious or malevolent, they're still upsetting you and your house, what do? You tell them to stop. Don't treat your ghosts any differently. Oh, where do I do my classes again? I've got a bunch of stuff up on YouTube that's for free. There's little things that are out. And then there are a bunch of classes that you can pick up on my website. And I think everything is still 50% off for the next day or two. So my website, let me see if I can do this. Because my last name is hard to spell because it's French. Okay, so if you go, okay. Oh, that didn't work very well. I think I'm gonna have to restart.